countdown. Hello. Hi, Dr. Greg.
Hello.
How you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me on.
I'm so glad to have you here today. I have to tell people the story of how you and I are acquainted before we get into our whole doctor discussion. But first, welcome everybody. Welcome to You Choose Sundays. What's today? Today is February 7th. Thank you for being here. I was not here last week because I needed a break. That's all. I needed a break. But I'm back. Happy February, happy Black History Month, happy Heart Month, happy Aquarius season for all of my Aquarians out there. It is our season. And welcome, Dr. Greg.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
So today, before you tell everybody like what you're up to and what you're doing these days, I'm going to tell them how we got acquainted. But because it is Black History Month, and it really is Black history all year long because Black history is American history, I just want to really quickly, I'm going to put up this little overlay and tell people about Dr. Rebecca Lee Crump. If you don't know about Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler, please go ahead and do a quick Google search. You know, I want us to know our history. I want to know my history. Sadly, you know, a lot of our schools don't teach us about Black history as American history. And so, you know, you are mostly an adult when you start finding this stuff out. So go find out. And you don't have to be Black to find out about Black history because, again, it is American history. So tomorrow is Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler's birthday. We want to honor her as the first African-American woman to become a physician way back in 1864. And, you know, there are a lot of really wonderful doctors out there, Black doctors who we don't know about. Let's go and find out about American history. All right. Did you know about Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler before you and I talked about
her name? I've heard her name, but I need to read more about her. I'm happy you brought it up because this is a good reminder that we do need to research our history better.
For sure. And in addition to it being Black History Month, it is also Heart Health Month. And so you and I are going to talk about some things having to do about healthy hearts and healthy aging. But before we do that, Dr. Greg, can I call you Dr. Greg? I know I call you Greg.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny. We're actually just launching a new column called Ask Dr. Greg. So you're right on brand for me.
So Dr. Greg, and when I'm really feeling spicy with you, I'm going to call you Dr. G. Dr. G, tell us what you're up to these days.
So I am a telemedicine wellness person. So I chat with people, mostly retired athletes or current athletes, about anti-aging and things you could do to stay young forever and how to fight off the effects of getting older and to stay strong and healthy, and just general diet tips and how to eat and how to sleep and what supplements you need and things like that. And then I wrote a book, Why Doctors Skip Breakfast, which is out on Amazon right now. You can grab a copy.
So really quickly, before we get into the aging part of this, because we're also going to talk about ageism, tell me, can you tell us, will you give us a spoiler? I want people to buy the book for sure. But will you tell us why doctors skip breakfast? Because I never skip breakfast, but I'm also not a doctor. So I don't have a big breakfast, but I drink a protein shake every morning.
Yeah, it's funny. So the idea, so I'm an anesthesiologist by training. And so for years, I worked at this major hospital in California. And in the morning, you know, there'd be like some of the anesthesiologists like me and some of the surgeons, and we'd all kind of hang out before they started, before we went into the hospital. And, you know, I can chit chat and we talk about our kids' soccer practice, you know, all that stuff, talk about the cases that were coming up. And one thing I noticed, I didn't notice it at first, but I noticed it eventually, is you have all these people, and these are like, hotshot, people. They all went to Harvard and everything else. And we'd be sitting around and people would be drinking coffee and water and stuff like that, but hardly anyone ate food. And these are people that are going into, pretty long days, some of them were going to 8-10 hour surgeries, and hardly any of them ate. And I wasn't eating either towards the end. And then it occurred to me that what we're doing is different than what other people are doing. Because if you go out, you see everybody, they're having donuts or bagels or something. And
sometimes both. Sometimes both.
Sometimes both. Right. Sometimes both. And so it occurred to me that we weren't really doing a good job of communicating with non-doctors kind of how we live our lives. And so where doctors skip breakfast, the idea comes from it's intermittent fasting, which is really, I think, taken a hold of a lot of people in the medical community and even outside. And that there's a lot of health benefits to fasting. And actually most of my book I wrote in a fasted state. So it's all about kind of the idea of skipping meals and sort of shrinking the time of day when you eat.
Okay, that makes sense. So I don't know that I have done any intermittent fasting on purpose. Sometimes, especially before I was in business for myself and I worked from home, I would skip meals all the time because I just always felt like I was rushing. So maybe I wouldn't have eaten breakfast. Maybe I would eat a small lunch. And by the time I get home, I'm so tired and maybe I'm not going to eat very well for dinner either. But that's not what you're talking about, because I feel like that is not actual fasting. That was just me not probably taking really good care of my body.
Yeah, I mean, I think for people that want to intentionally fast, there are certain things you want to do, to get the most out of it. And, there's a lot of different ways of fasting, but the common way to do it is you fast for maybe 16 hours a day or so. So what you would do, though, is when you're not fasting, you want to make sure you're hydrated. So you drink lots of water. If you're fasting in the morning, I'm a big fan of having coffee or tea, black coffee or black tea. I think that really helps. The stuff I really love, I'm crazy about. If you look at my refrigerator, half the refrigerator are these things, those sparkling waters, like bubbly or something. So, because you want to find, it's fun. It gives you something to drink, to look forward to, but it doesn't have any calories.
Yeah.
So there's some ways to do it, but the thing is, it helps, I think, to work your way up to it. Most people have trouble just fasting for 16 hours out of the box,
Right.
And so I recommend start with 12 hours and kind of work your way up. But when you do it, I've had a lot of people tell me, because I've coached a lot of people through how to do fasting. And at first they're like, oh my gosh, there's no way I could do this. And then in about a week's time, they're fasting 16 hours a day easy. But you do have to kind of work your way up to it a little bit.
Yeah, because that sounds so brutal to me. Like, listen, I am a foodie. I got to eat. Let me tell you, I'm the kind of person where like, if I wake up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom, which is rare, but if I do, I'm not gonna lie, I might stop at the refrigerator and grab it. I might do it. So, maybe that'll be something that I look into. But today we are talking about really being healthy at any age. And so I really want to talk about that because, I'll be 42 years old on the 16th this month. And what I have always heard, which I do not believe, and we're going to talk about, is especially as I was approaching 40. I don't hear it as much now because I'm already over 40. But as I was approaching 40, you start hearing this in your 20s, right? I would hear, well, once you hit 40, it's all downhill from there. Lies. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't accept that for my body. I don't accept that for my life. I think it's ageist to say that. And to be honest with you, pushing 42, I feel healthier. Besides this bout with COVID that I had last year, that seems to be like, I have some things that are going on, I think, as a result of that. Outside of that, I feel the healthiest that I have felt in a very long time. I feel like I am stronger at 41 than I was at 31. I can squat 100 pounds. I know I can because I pick up my son on a regular basis. So let's talk about healthy aging, because I think we live in a society that covets youth, and we forget to really be grateful for the time we have. So let's talk a little bit about how you feel about healthy aging, and then maybe you can give us some tips about how we can continue to age and still be healthy. Like, just because you age doesn't mean you know you got one foot in the grave. I don't, because with that kind of thinking, we could say as soon as you're born, you got one foot in the grave, right? So what are some things that you want to tell us about healthy aging at any age?
Well, I'm really happy you brought this up because I love this topic. And I think you're right that there's a lot of misconceptions about it. And when I think of healthy aging, I kind of think of three components. There's your cognitive health, like your ability to think and your brain's function.
Mhm.
There's your physical health, like your chronic diseases and strength and that type of stuff. But I also think there's mental health,
Yes.
which here I'm distinguishing from cognitive health. By mental health, I mean your mood, like your happiness and anxiety. So there are some things we know with age. So with age, if you do nothing, your physical strength will decline. That's just a fact. Your lung function will decline. If for men, your testosterone levels will decline. There are certain things that happen for men and women, but maybe more for women. Your bone density will decline.
Yeah.
These are things that will happen for sure with age if you do nothing. But if you're smart about it,
say that part again, Dr. Greg.
Yeah.
If you do nothing,
right?
If you do nothing.
Right. But the thing is, all of those things you actually have control over if you're intentional about it.
Yeah.
In terms of your cognitive health, people think that it's inevitable that you'll get dementia or Alzheimer's or have trouble thinking. And that isn't true. That isn't true. And most older people don't get dementia or Alzheimer's or any of those things. And yes, there are some people that do, and there's some famous examples of people that have had it, but Alzheimer's and dementia are not our destiny. I mean, I know, and I'm sure you do as well, plenty of people in their 80s or even their 90s that are really mentally sharp.
Yes.
And so cognitive decline is not inevitable.
Yeah.
Although there are things we could do if we're not careful that'll make it more likely, which is why you want to, live a good lifestyle. But the third one, your mental health, that's actually one thing, interestingly, that a lot of older people have an advantage over younger people. There's been some pretty cool studies that on average, older people are actually happier than younger people. If you look at people in their 70s and 80s, I mean, obviously there's, not everybody falls into this, but if you look at people in their 70s and 80s, they're usually a lot happier than people in their 20s, or they're happier even than teenagers. They don't really have anything to prove.
Yeah.
They've already kind of established themselves. Most of them are comfortable in their identities. Many of them, if they have grandkids and things like that, they take a lot of joy in kind of simpler things.
Yeah.
And I think the big thing is a lot of older people, to their credit, they're able to more focus on today.
Yes.
Without worrying about tomorrow.
So in that sense, when you say that, sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's good.
You say it in that way, I aspire then to live my life like a senior, like a happy 70-year-old. Because first of all, I want to say the older I get, the better I feel, the more confident I feel. I feel better in my body, yes, but I just have a confidence about myself at 41 that I definitely didn't have at 31, and that I damn sure didn't have at 21, or I wouldn't have let some stuff happen that I let happen. Everybody got some exes in their life that they could punch right now, but I'm just different at 41 than I was then. And so I have maintained, even at a younger age, I have maintained that I will continue to get better with age. I look forward to getting older. Aging is a privilege that not everyone has. And my mother died at 56 years old. So I think about my family line, and this can make me really sad if I sit in it too long, but my mother, did not know her grandparents. I do not know at least one half of my grandparents. And then, I didn't know my mother's parents very well at all. I didn't know my grandmother. I never knew my grandfather. On my dad's side, my grandfather lived to be 88 years old, and I knew him and loved him, and, had a close relationship with my grandfather. But my grandmother died when I was in the 3rd grade. And then now for my children, here we are, a whole nother generation. My children will not know, their grandmother. So that's got to end with me. That's got to end, because I want my grandchildren on my lap when I'm 100. I want them to know me. I want to be playing drums. I want to be doing some of these things that for a long time, growing up, people will tell you, well, it's all downhill. I just don't believe it. I think it's garbage.
Well, and that's the thing, is you've hit on some really good points. One of them is knowing your family history. There's a lot of stuff you could do now that could lengthen your life, but also not just lengthen your life, but also make you healthier in the latter part of your life. It's funny, if you were to go to a room of people and say, raise your hand if you'd like to live to be 100, not as many people would raise their hands as you think.
Yep.
And the reason is because everybody kind of remembers like an older person that was sick or in a nursing home. And we all say, well, we don't want to be like that. Who wants to be really old if you're just going to be in a nursing home?
Right.
But the truth is that there are ways you could both lengthen the number of years you have, but also make those years better. So when you're in your 80s or 90s, you do what you're talking about. You're playing with your grandkids or even your great grandkids, and those are all things that we could do if we make smart choices and we live our lives well.
Yeah. So can you tell us just a couple things that we might be able to do that might help, especially with, I think you're right. I think people don't want to live really long because they think about that cognitive decline, not just their physical decline. I think it's the cognitive decline too. And if I'm being honest, I'm more worried about cognitive decline than I am about my physical health failing. What are a couple things that you think we could do in our 20s, 30s, 40s, up into our 50s, as we're getting older, right, to really help with our cognitive health? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked. So there's 3 things for sure that I recommend to everybody for cognitive health. And they're not that, in my opinion, they're not that difficult to do. The first one is make sure you get enough sleep. And, people, I don't think, talk about this enough. And I think in America, especially, we really have a very bad way of looking at sleep. A lot of people almost look at sleep deprivation as like a badge of honor, like, yeah, man, like I worked so hard. I was up all night, or, oh, I only slept 2 hours because I worked so hard.
And that's awful. Thank you. It's dumb. And stop bragging about it. And especially entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs who have been in this for a long time, who are mentoring younger entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs, you especially need to stop, because it's unhealthy and it's not okay. And people should not be like, whoop, whoop, I'm, ride or die all day. Sleep when I die. No, dummy, sleep, die early, because you're not getting what you need for your body. I just have to say, I have heard that, like, and people brag about that. I'll sleep.
They do.
Okay, well, maybe you'll die early.
We have a toxic relationship in the United States with sleep. And it's a shame, because I mean, I just want to give you one study. This was pretty, I don't know how they found volunteers to do this, but they got volunteers. And what they did is they took 2 groups of people. One group got normal sleep and another got, diminished sleep. It wasn't nothing. It was like 4 hours or something. And then he did a spinal tap on them, where they stick a needle in their back and they look at the fluid that goes around the brain.
Yeah.
The people that had the decreased sleep, their fluid around their brain and what they got out of it looked like someone older with Alzheimer's disease, just from like one night of crappy sleep.
Wow.
Now, obviously, like, that could be partly fixed with better sleep. But if you do that night after night, if one night can mess you up like that, think about people that are doing this night after night. Yeah. I mean, you're really hurting your brain. Your risk of getting Alzheimer's and other things, strokes, heart attacks, cancer, really goes up with sleep deprivation. Yeah. Not to mention things like car accidents. I mean, there was an interesting study that bosses who didn't get enough sleep were less liked by their we're less liked by their employees, you
I
know.
bet. Because when you don't get enough sleep, you're also super grumpy. You might,
Correct.
you're not, but
Correct.
you are. You're short with people. I know I am. I know I am. I like my sleep. I'm a person
Right.
who naps. Like I take naps even. I need that though. I know how my body feels, and more than how my body feels, how my brain feels, the way that I think, the way that I talk to myself, not good when I haven't gotten enough rest. I'm just not at my best when I don't get sleep. So yeah, so I like that you say sleep. What
Yeah,
else?
so sleep is one. Number two is exercise. And I know, again, this kind of cliche, exercise is important, but exercise is important. And oddly enough, exercise isn't that useful for weight loss. For people that want to lose weight, the best way is through diet. But for almost everything else, exercise is really important. And one of them is cognitive health. When you exercise, you keep your brain in tip-top shape. And a lot of people, unfortunately, they look at their bodies as just a thing that carries their brain from place to place,
Mm-hmm.
like a car that brings you, to work. But your body and your brain are very closely related. When you exercise your body, you take a walk or you jog or you swim or play tennis or whatever you like to do, you're making your brain healthier.
Yeah.
And you're protecting your cognitive function. You're making your brain work better later in life. And you're even helping yourself think now. I mean, I don't know if you've ever taken a walk. Have you ever had a problem where you were trying to figure something out and you took a walk and you figured it out?
A
It
lot.
wasn't just the time, it was the exercise.
Yep.
It
So
helped you think.
so I have to tell you this about exercise. Like, I loathe it. I don't like it. um, I have to be intentional about working exercise into my day every day. And especially for me, just for like my body type, the type of body that I have. I'm short. I'm thickums on the top. I'm a little bit muffiny in the middle. I need cardio, but more than that, the reason I exercise is because I can feel when I'm getting wound up, and I know that only exercise helps me get that energy out. So what I have started doing, I started actually doing it back in December, and I'm doing it consistently 5 days a week. When I sit at my desk to work, because I'm at my desk working all day long, I actually set my alarm, and every 45 minutes I get up and I throw a 40-pound kettlebell 25 times. And I'm tired when I'm done, but I just feel like I can think better. And I'm doing that several times a day. That's how I'm getting my exercise in, because I'm paying for a membership now that I don't use. I can't stand it. The only time I can think of that I've ever really truly loved exercise and I couldn't wait to go and exercise is I used to go to a Zumba class, and Kelly Nagy, shout out to Kelly Nagy. She put on the best Zumba class. I could dance all day. But we're not doing that right now because of COVID. So I have to find other ways to exercise, and taking my dog for a walk is one way. But if I really want to get my heart going, if I really want to get the kind of exercise I know that works for me, I got to do some serious cardio, and I need to throw a kettlebell. That's what works for me.
Well, it's funny. So my kids and I have this practice. It's like a gratitude thing. Every night before bed, we go around and everybody's supposed to say their favorite activity or couple activities of the day. We do this every day. And so there'll be days where we might only go out maybe for a 10 or 15 minute or 30-minute walk, or we'll jump on the trampoline, not even that long. But at night, almost always, when you look, like people list their favorite activities, that little walk, that jump on the trampoline almost always makes it in. You did 50 other things that day, but just that little bit of that walk or that trampoline or whatever it may be, that almost always gets into the favorite activity day because you like it and you feel good because of it.
Yeah. And so the feel good part, I think, is so very important too. Like I don't like to exercise, but every time I do it, I just feel better. I sleep better. You talked about sleep and exercise being two things that we could really do to help our cognitive health. I think those two things go hand in hand. When I have exerted myself, through exercise, I just sleep really well. I do. So what's that third thing you'll say?
So the third one is to avoid sugar.
Oh, damn it. Come on, Dr. Greg.
I
I knew
know.
you
I
were
saved the
gonna
best for last. Huh?
say it, right?
So, so here's the deal. So we know, for example, that people who have diabetes are more likely to get Alzheimer's disease. And
Mm,
some people, you've heard of diabetes type 1 and type 2. Some people are almost calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes because there's such a close relationship between diabetes and Alzheimer's.
I didn't know
And
that.
we don't fully understand why, but we know when your blood sugars are chronically high and when your insulin levels, and your insulin goes up when you have sugar, when your insulin levels are chronically high, that's bad for your brain. We know this to be true. And so one of the big things I recommend is we want to do stuff to keep our blood sugar and our insulin down. And one of the easiest ways to do it, and there's a million diet recommendations. You could do paleo and you could do keto and you could do this and vegan and organic and everything else, fasting, everything you want. But at the end of the day, really, probably one of the very best dietary tips that anyone could give is to keep your sugar levels low.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to do that is to avoid drinking sugary drinks.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one for me. So sodas, frappuccinos from Starbucks, juices like
Juice.
apple juice, things like that.
Yeah.
Cut that stuff out.
Yeah.
And then, cut out sugary foods like cupcakes and donuts and that type of thing. Now, I'm not telling you never to have that.
Mm-hmm.
Like my kids and I, we have this tradition, we call it the Saturday morning tradition. And so every Saturday morning we get together as a family and we go out and we have a big unhealthy meal. I do this every Saturday and you'll catch me, I'll eat pancakes or something like that. But that's really the only time we do that during the week. And so we splurge that one day, but then we don't do it the rest of the week.
Yeah.
It isn't the occasional meal that's going to get you. It's not, oh, I was at a birthday party and I had cake. That's not what's going to do you in.
Right.
It's the day after day grind of having those frappuccinos every day, that apple juice every day. That's the stuff that's going to get you.
Yeah. So I will say that what I have cut out since I started working from home and I'm not like traveling to work anymore, every morning without fail, even if it was going to make me late, okay? Which I was hardly ever late because I'm a good employee. But I would always stop and I would get a medium cappuccino with an extra shot of espresso, and I would also get either a glazed donut or a bagel every morning. And so aside from it not being good to have that every day just because of the sugar content, but what I also started realizing was every Saturday and Sunday morning without fail, I had a headache that was it was a monster. And it was because my body had been conditioned to have that doggone cappuccino with a shot of espresso every morning and probably that sugar too. And when I wasn't giving my body what it had gotten accustomed to, I just was not feeling well. I wasn't.
Yeah. That's a real thing. Now, I will say, I am a big fan of coffee. In fact, we did this little trick before. Watch the invisible coffee.
Right? I love it.
Here's one of these Zoom tricks you could try at home. But so coffee, I'm a big fan of, and interestingly, that may actually help protect your brain from cognitive decline. Regular kind of moderate coffee drinkers, 2, 3, 4 cups a day, that may actually protect you from Parkinson's and maybe even Alzheimer's and things like that. But the junk you add to it, like the sugar, especially, if you have like a really sweetened coffee drink, that's where people can go wrong. But the coffee itself, I think, is great. But you're right, you can get dependent on it, and you need to be careful of having it too late in the day because it could interfere with your sleep. But moderate amount of coffee early in the day, I think that's good stuff. I swear by it.
So I have been switching to tea lately only because I think I'm also going through menopause right now. I'm pretty sure I had a hysterectomy. I know you're not an OBGYN, but here we go. We're going to talk about some stuff, right? I had a hysterectomy a couple years ago. And so my doctor told me at that time, like, you're probably going to, experience menopause earlier because I only had one ovary to begin with. So my insides were a little bit raggedy to begin with. I'm lucky to have the children that I have. But man, my sleep has been kind of jacked up. And even though I'm not a person who naturally stays up late, I'm trying not to have coffee after noon, like
Yes.
literally after 12 p.m. noon, because I'm already having a hard time like falling asleep and staying asleep because I'm like sweating in the middle of the night and I just feel like I'm gonna punch somebody's lights out sometimes. But I'm watching all of that stuff too. So
Yeah,
Greg, I want
you're right about the
no, no.
noon. Noon should be a cutoff for coffee, in my opinion.
So noon is the cutoff for coffee, folks. Okay, noon is our cutoff. I know people who have coffee with dinner. I'm always like, how do you even do it?
Well, so here's a funny thing, actually. So sleep is divided into different stages. It's not like you're asleep or you're awake. There's like light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, which is when you dream. So for many people, if you drink coffee, it's harder to fall asleep. But there are some people that could drink coffee and they'll fall asleep. But their sleep is still worse. The quality
Okay.
of their sleep is still worse. So yes, they may be asleep, but it's not as good sleep. It's kind of like alcohol. You could drink before bed and fall asleep, but your sleep quality is worse. So it's not like you're asleep or you're awake. There's depth of sleep, and coffee late in the day and alcohol later in the day both can actually disrupt the quality of your sleep, even if you are asleep.
Okay. That's good to know. That part, especially about the alcohol, I didn't realize. Like, people say, I'm going to have a glass of wine. I know I do. I'm going to have a glass of wine so I can go ahead and hit this bed. And then, like 3 hours later, I'm up and maybe I went to the fridge to get a snack. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's because your sleep quality was worse, and you're kind of hovering more on the edge of wakefulness, and so it was easy for you to wake up, and yeah, and you got hungry and got out of bed, and it messed up your sleep even more because now you're like awake.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. And now I'm just laying here, like hoping I can go back to sleep. So, well, thank you. That's really good. So, I just want to stop really quick and acknowledge everyone. Thank you for joining us today for You Choose Sundays. I'm talking to Dr. Greg today, and we're talking about ways that we can remain healthy as we're aging. There's this myth that as you age, automatically decline, going into the grave. That's horrible. That's a lie. It's not true. And so I have one question that I want to put up from Deborah Elliott. Hi, Deb. Deborah says, question for Dr. C. What do you think of low impact, high intensity interval training for women over 60? You have any thoughts about that?
Yes, that's a great question, actually. So there's a big debate, what are the best types of exercise to do?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to get into specific exercises, but just the general idea. The main categories of exercise are resistance training,
Mm-hmm.
like weights, kettlebell would fall into the resistance training category, or cardio, which should be like running, jogging, swimming, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so people go back and forth, what's the best thing to do? And what we think the best thing to do is to do some of both. It doesn't have to be in the same sitting, but ideally you would do some resistance and some cardio. But it may be that the very best exercise of all is high interval. This HIIT, like the high intensity interval. I have to think about the acronym. High intensity interval training, and what that is when you work really hard and you really get your heart rate up, but then you do something lighter, and then you work really hard, and then you do something lighter. And so there's different ways to do this. Like the jogging way would be like you run really hard and then you kind of walk slowly, then you walk slowly. There's different ways to do it.
Okay.
And that is really healthy. And we think that's actually one of the best types of exercise. And it might have the most bang for your buck in terms of an hour, per hour. So I like it. So I think for heart health, I think it's great. For women over 60, I think it's excellent. It's because it's really good for your heart. It's good for your brain. The one caveat I would add is there is some benefit of impact in that it helps protect you from osteoporosis. So, for example, let's say you love swimming, and swimming is a great exercise, and really, really great exercise. And you could do swimming as like a high intensity thing where you do like really fast laps and then you kind of go leisurely and fast.
Okay.
Swimming is great, but it doesn't help protect you from osteoporosis. So for older women, osteoporosis is a big deal. And osteoporosis, for those that don't remember, that's when your bones lose some bone density,
Right.
and they get thinner. And when you have osteoporosis, there's a greater risk that if you trip and fall, you could break a bone like your hip. And for older people, a broken hip could be very, very bad. It could mean bad surgery or even death. And so osteoporosis, especially for women and especially for, postmenopausal women, it's something to think about. I recommend, as long as your joints can handle it, at least some impact exercise too, like walking, tennis, jogging, running, something like that. But low intensity or low impact HIIT is also an excellent thing to do. I would just have some sort of something with impact if your joints can handle it.
Okay. So I have been thinking about this. Like, I did kickboxing a few years back. Now that Zumba and kickboxing are the two things that I think I could do regularly, that I wouldn't mind doing, because it doesn't, I like it. I like it. And it's such a good stress reliever too. I enjoy that kind of intensity. And I think you have to be intentional about, especially if you're a person like me who isn't like in love with just exercising. Like, some people just love it. I'm not that person. I think we have to be very intentional if we're talking about healthy aging. We have to be intentional about fitting exercise into our day. Like, I'm getting rid of that that exercise program because I'm not using it, but I will continue to throw my kettlebell. And then I really need to think about how I'm going to get that cardio in there. So I don't know, Kelly Nagy, if you're watching, please start up that Zumba again, girl, because I'm ready.
Well, there's an old cliche: the best exercise is the exercise you'll do.
Amen.
So I'll give you an example. Like, so I just told you a minute ago that HIIT is probably one of the healthiest things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it.
Okay.
So I don't do it. I'll tell you to do it because I know it's good, but I don't do it myself because I don't like it. So I do other things that I like. So at the end of the day, like, you have to kind of, and you may have to experiment, find the stuff you like, because that's the stuff you're going to do. Yeah. If you told me I have to do HIIT, I might give up because it's just not my thing.
Yes. If you tell me I'm going to have to continue to do crunches all day, me and this muffin top, we're just going to be going into life together, all through life together. So that's what it's going to be. So listen, if you're watching right now, if you have any questions for Dr. Greg, go ahead and ask them, especially, let me see. I hope that I can see them on Facebook, guys. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. But go ahead and drop a question in there. And if we don't see it live, I'll make sure that we go back and answer it. And I'm going to switch gears for a little bit because we're having such a good conversation. It's been 40 minutes already. I want to talk to you about ageism and ageism in the health community, because I think it's important. I told you earlier on, I know I'm not alone when I say this, that for a long time, I would always hear, as soon as you hit 40, it's all downhill from now. But I do believe that we need to talk to younger people too about healthy aging, about, taking care of our bodies in our 20s, in our 30s, and into our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. And so what are some of the things, that's something that's ageist to me, is telling an older person, outside of telling somebody who is 40 plus, you look good for your age, super ageist, outside of that, but also to drive, especially to women who are 40 plus, you got to get your body in shape. You got to get your body in shape. Everybody should be getting their body in shape. And when I mean in shape, I'm talking about not just your physical, how you look with the eye. I'm talking about the insides of your body, because I think that there are some thin people who are probably pretty unhealthy. And so I think we have this unfair and ageist attitude about health, especially when it comes to women, and especially when it comes to women who are over 40. My husband is 42 years old. Nobody ever, what people tell Nick all the time? You know what they tell me about Nick all the time? He gets better looking as he gets older. First of all, back up. Yes, I know that. Back up. Back it up. He does jujitsu. He takes care of his body, but he also drinks a ton of Mountain Dew all the time. It's something that he's working on, and nobody will ever say anything to him about that. And I'm not, no shade on my husband at all. He's a great picture of health other than that Mountain Dew. He's working on some things, as I am, but I think some of these comments are just really ageist. And what are some things that you have to say about aging and maybe some of the attitudes that we have that are unfair and that honestly are also false.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. You actually bring up some great points. And well, first of all, I mean, you've probably seen this even more than I have, is for employment. A lot of times it's harder for older people to get jobs. And
Yes.
I think that that's in part because of this unfair perception that either they can't cut it mentally, they're not mentally agile enough to do it, or
Right.
maybe a perception that they're going to just get sick, and who wants to hire someone who's just going to be out sick all the time?
Yep.
And those things are not necessarily true. There's a lot of older people that are just as smart or smarter than we are, and a lot of times their experience
Mhm.
can outweigh potentially this sort of mental agility that you worry about. And a
Yeah.
lot of older people are really phenomenal at their jobs, and they take their job seriously, and they're working a lot of times because they want to do it.
Yes.
And so these are oftentimes some of the best employees. So
Hmm.
I think that companies are doing themselves a disservice when they know officially they can't do this because it'd be illegal, but even unofficially, if you're ruling out older people, you're actually doing yourself a disservice, because a lot of those people work very hard. They don't have the
Yep.
chronic medical problems you're talking about. They're going to work for many years, and they're going to be really dedicated. So the thing is, like I said, there are certain things that will inevitably happen with age. Like your reflexes, for example, they'll decline a little bit with age. That's just a fact. But your ability to perform at work, that doesn't have to decline. That doesn't have to decline with age. There's a lot of like 50, 60-year-olds that are really phenomenal at their job. So I think
Yeah.
that's one area of ageism. And I agree with you. I think that this hurts women more than men, because I think there's a perception, you see like a 60, 70-year-old guy, you think, oh, he's like the CEO, right?
Hmm.
So, but when you don't necessarily just assume that automatically about a 60 or 70-year-old woman. So
Right.
I think that there is this perception, and I think it hurts women more. But the fact is that these older workers, and you see this over and over again, unless it's something like NASCAR driving, you know, for most fields, these older workers are going to do just as good a job, if not better, than the younger workers will.
Yeah. I think so too. And the other thing I think about also is when we push older workers out of the workplace, we are missing that experience that we desperately need because they've seen some things that we haven't seen. So, and from a health standpoint, because of TikTok, because of Twitter, because of social media in general, because of Instagram, there are a ton of older ladies, the baddies we call them, that I'm like, well, dang, maybe I should get myself together before a 70-year-old comes along and steals my man because I'm seeing some tight bodies, some strong women, and not just strong mentally, not just perseverance. We love to talk about a woman's perseverance. No, they're strong, like they got guns and they're 70 plus. So I'm following all these older women because I'm just inspired. And again, I think that aging is a privilege and I want to be 100. I want to be 100. I'm concerned about heart health. Women die from heart disease more than any other disease. It's heart disease. I told you earlier that I had to go in for a stress test earlier in the week on Friday, actually. And how I'm like waiting for these results back, and now I got to go back again. Like that's a concern for me. I want a healthy heart. Heart disease runs in my family. Diabetes runs in my family. I have high blood pressure and have been on 5 milligrams of medication for the last 15 years almost. I want to live. So some of the things that you were saying today, like the sugar, I'm not a big candy person, but I love my breads. I love my pastas. I love my potatoes, all sugar. I know better. I know better. So you've given me some things to think about today as 2021 moves on and how I can be healthier.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned high blood pressure, and you mentioned earlier that it's Black History Month, and one of the things we find is there is sort of a racial disparity too in terms of healthcare, and I think particularly for heart disease, that's one area that there clearly is a racial disparity, and a
Yep.
lot of Black Americans, they have higher rates of high blood pressure, of diabetes, and of heart disease,
Yes.
and one of the messages I try to get out to people, and you were talking about like 20s and 30s and 40-year-olds, that we can do things with time to make us in better shape as we're older. And the trouble is something like high blood pressure, and you could attest to this. You don't feel the high blood pressure. Like, it's not bothering you. You only know it because you walked into a doctor's office and you got it checked. Otherwise, you wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
And so people are often not so good about getting it checked or taking their high blood pressure pills because it doesn't bother them.
Because it feels fine, right?
You feel fine. It doesn't bother you. It doesn't cause a problem until it causes a problem.
Yes.
It's just like cholesterol. You have high cholesterol. That's not bothering you. You could care less until it becomes a problem, And so you don't want to wait until it's a problem. You want to treat it when it's detected before it's caused a problem. So if you have high blood pressure, you have high cholesterol, any of these things, you want to get on that, as soon as you're aware of it, rather than wait until something bad comes because of it.
Yeah, you're right. So I have a goal. I even hate saying this because I don't like people to hold me accountable sometimes, but I really, I've been on 5 milligrams, right? I'm on the lowest, almost, I think you can go down to 2.5, but I'm like at the lowest dosage for high blood pressure medication. And I just want to be off of it. I just want to be done. And I'm pretty sure that if I lost 10 pounds, I could do it. Right. So that's what I'm working at this year. Like, it's not so much the exercise for me. It's my diet. It's my diet. Like, I'm a late eater sometimes. I eat right before I go to bed because it makes me good and sleepy. That's like the worst thing to do. I know better. So I am going to watch some of those things this year. And I'm really glad that you brought up the health disparities. And I'm just really glad that you came on today to talk about some of this stuff. I'm glad that you're here. I'm going to put up one last question. And if anybody watching has a question, speak now or forever hold your peace. We've got Dr. Greg here, and he's helping us get healthy at every age. And Deborah, we've got another one from Deborah. She says, is it sugar or carbs in general that we need to consume in moderation? That's a good question.
So this is one of the hottest sort of health questions out there. And so you could ask 100 experts and you'll get 100 different answers. I'll tell you my own view. Almost everyone will agree that sugar is bad. There's really no debate about sugar. And by sugar, I mean like sugar, like fast absorbing things, like the stuff in fruit juice and soda. I don't think you'll find any health expert that will disagree with that.
Okay.
The question is, what about non-sugar carbs? So there's, like I said, there's some dispute about this, but I'll tell you, I think the weight of the evidence is there are healthy complex carbohydrates that I think you should eat. So for example, whole grain oats, even whole grain wheat, barley, rye, things like that.
Okay.
Minimally or non-processed stuff. I think the weight of the evidence is that is healthy. So for example, particularly if you get like steel cut oats or things like that, it's healthy. And the reason it's healthy is it has a lot of nutrients and it has a lot of fiber.
Okay.
So those types of whole grains, and I mean minimally processed whole grains, not like if you get Cheez-Its and it says whole grain made from whole grain, but like minimally processed whole grains, like oatmeal type stuff. The weight of the evidence, I think, is that's good for you. And it seems to reduce your risk of cancer. It's good for your brain, and it's probably good for your heart. And it seems that people that have whole grain sort of plant-based diets, they live longer.
Okay.
And so I personally, if you came to me and you said, oh, I have a bowl of oatmeal every day, I would tell you, like, that's awesome and you should keep doing it. Now, obviously, you don't want to add to that oatmeal a bunch of sugar and a bunch of garbage, right? Because now it's like the Frappuccino, right? Coffee is good for you, but the Frappuccino isn't. So I personally don't feel you should avoid carbs. The other type of carb that I don't think you should avoid are the carbs that are naturally found in whole fruits and vegetables. So if you eat sweet potatoes, for example, those are awesome. They have got a lot of carbs, right? But a sweet potato is really one of the healthiest foods you could eat. So I strongly recommend eating that. Whole fruits, not the juice, but whole fruits like oranges, they have some carbs, but you should eat those things. So My own view is I don't think that people should avoid carbs per se. I think they should avoid fast carbs or processed carbs.
Okay. That's a good distinction. Thank you for that. And I have one more question. Thank you for your question, Deborah. And I have one question for you before I turn you loose. You've been here 45 minutes already. It's 50 minutes already. Time really flew. Thank you for this conversation. Tell me what you think about aloe vera juice. Is it a hoax? Is it really as great as everybody says? Like, I have aloe vera juice every morning because I've read about the health benefits of it. So I drink a protein shake and I have aloe vera juice almost every morning. I'm telling you that this is the best that I think I've ever felt. And I've had a lot of surgeries. Like I've had a lot of structural problems. Like I've had to have a fusion in my neck. I just have had some things go on, but I just feel like the more I try to take in things that I hear are healthy for my body, even if I'm not getting the exercise, I just feel better. So I take a multivitamin every day. I take, I think it's called Gold. I can't remember. I'm looking at the label right now in my head, but I take a multivitamin and I take aloe vera juice every day. And I don't know, I will say I don't feel very bloated anymore. I just feel a little bit healthier. What do you say about aloe vera juice? Do you have any opinions about it?
So I'll tell you, I don't specifically have an opinion about aloe vera juice. It's interesting. I'll look it up and I'll get back to you about it. I do think that a lot of natural plant products are good for you. I'm not one of those doctors that thinks that supplements are bad, or that natural. I think most of these plant products are probably good for you. Like, for example, garlic. Garlic is really, really healthy. So I take garlic supplements, plus I pour garlic on everything. Like, I'm a big fan of the stuff. And so I'm an advocate of this. Aloe vera specifically, I have to be honest, I'd have to look into. The one thing I would caution you about is there are sometimes things that are basically sugar that have other names.
Yeah.
And so, depending on how it's prepared, it may have a lot of sugar in it. You may want to.
It's straight aloe vera juice, and it tastes exactly like the plant smells. Like when you break aloe vera and you smell, that's how it tastes. So it's not very good. They say to put it in juice, which I don't, because I don't drink a lot of juice.
Good.
So I just take a 4-ounce cup. I just chug it down. And what I have noticed is that, yeah, I don't know if this is because of my hysterectomy or because I just started treating my body a little bit better. But man, I used to have belly bloat all the time. And I did have some issues. Like I had some reproductive issues. And once that we got that taken care of, I just felt better in my belly anyway. But even I've been taking the aloe vera juice now for, I don't know, almost 2 months. I just feel good. I don't know.
There's this thing called body hacking, and I like it. And the idea is that you intentionally expose yourself to, say, different foods or different things, and then you watch and you see whether that helped you or not. And you're obviously like a very organized, thoughtful person, so you would be a good candidate for doing body hacking, where you could do this. You give yourself aloe vera juice and you see, like, do you feel better? Is your energy level better? Are you sleeping okay? And if the answer is you do, then I would say you should keep doing it because it works for your body. And I think, one of the big problems in healthcare and nutrition is we try to come up with these one-size-fits-all solutions. And that isn't the way it works. It may be that aloe vera juice is really great for you and it's not great for me, or vice versa. Wow. And sometimes you don't know that until you try.
Yeah.
So I would say if you've tried it, and I could see that you're a very observant person, you've tried, if you feel better, and I could tell you're also in touch with your body, which is important. Not everybody is. If you're in touch with your body and you try it and you see you're better with it, I think it's good for you. I feel confident saying that you should do that. Now, does that mean everybody listening should do it? Maybe not. But for you, I would say it's probably good because I think you're observant enough to know.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Greg. I had so much fun having you on today. I hope that people watching today got something from this talk. I know that they did. Why don't you tell us one more time about your book and about where folks can connect with you?
So the book is called Why Doctors Skip Breakfast, and you can get it from Amazon. It's available as Kindle or paperback, or it's also available from Audible. if you're an audiobook listener like I am. The best way to reach me is I'm on LinkedIn. So you can look for my name, Gregory Charlop, Gregory, and last name is spelled Charlop. And I'm also online. So I have a website, GregoryCharlopMD.com, GregoryCharlopMD.com.
Nice. And so rolling out here, I always try to ask somebody a little something personal. Okay. So I'm going to ask you something personal. I don't tell you what I'm going to ask you because, you know, I am organized, very, except for when it comes to this. This is the only thing I'm not organized about. Are you watching the Super Bowl today?
Yeah, so my answer is that's my plan. I love sports, and I'm a big football fan.
Okay.
But it's I'm in Texas. Well, it's even later for you. Well, I guess maybe we're in the same time zone. I'm just trying to figure out how I can watch it and not get the kids to bed late. So I've been like, because of the sleep thing, right? So I don't like keeping them up late because then I want to pull my hair out and kill myself. So I've tried to figure out a way I can like watch it and get the kids to bed on time. So I'll next time we speak, I'll tell you if I could find a solution to that.
I get that. I probably will not watch. I'm not a huge football person. You know, my husband will be watching and I will probably be like, you know what I think I'm going to do today? Because it's going to be loud in our house anyway, because he's going to be hollering. The TV's going to be loud. We're not having people over, but he's going to watch it with our kids. I'm going to go in the basement and I'm going to hit these drums. You know, I've been working on traveling, you know, across, you know, my drum rolls. I suck at it. But I want to be good. And I wish that I would have started earlier because, you know, there's also some studies about drumming and Alzheimer's too. I don't know if you know about that, but yeah. So I wish I would have started earlier on in life because I could be a star right now. It's fine. It's fine. It wasn't my calling. That's all right. I'm going to work on it. Greg, it was so great to have you. You got any parting words for the people on our way out?
Keep watching your stuff because you do good work. That's my parting words. I've been following you for a long time now, and you keep getting better and better.
Listen, I really appreciate that because we talked about how I am with myself sometimes, and I don't really know what the right thing is or the wrong thing is. I just go with my heart, and sometimes I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. So that means a lot to me, and I appreciate that. So I know you and I will be in touch. Yeah, I want to hear about Texas. I plan on getting to Texas here sometime. Me and my husband were talking about where we're going to go this year, and Texas did come up, but then we were like, who goes to Texas in the summer except for people who really want to know what it feels like to be in hell? It's not doing that. But we will get there at some point. And when we do, he wants to go to Austin. You know, I'll look you up.
Yeah, I'll show you around.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Everybody, thank you so much. I'll be back next Sunday. I can't remember who's going to be on. We'll find out, and I'll see you then. Everybody have a great week.